Allow me to say good afternoon, Paul. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this call with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to sharing your perspectives and learnings for all of the leaders around the world who would benefit from your perspectives and experience, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Venkat. It's a pleasure connecting with you.
Definitely. Allow me to go ahead and get started by asking you a set of questions, Paul. In fact, the first question that I want to go ahead and start off with is primarily to look at, hey, how does your inner child bring out the best in you as a leader, Paul?
So, you look at a child, there are a few things, right? One is there are no biases. And then there is, a lot of trust, right? So a child never would start with doubting a person in the first place, right? Experience is built based on, how the interaction works.
Sure.
So, do not start out like that in my leadership journey at the earlier stages of my leadership journey. But now I feel like, if you leave the biases out and you trust that, an individual can deliver, that automatically elevates, accelerates your start, right? The start point is at a much farther distance versus, if you start with biases and doubts and, saying that, hey, look, we'll start here and then we'll build up. But why don't we start here? And if we have to take one step forward and then two step backward and then learn from it, it's okay. But, don't have to, start way behind the start line. So that kind of helps me because, it also in the process, you learn the individual, a lot of open conversation. There is vulnerabilities are not being hidden or, packaged as, no one is moonlighting as expert. Everybody starts from a place where, hey, let's do this together. There's a lot of intellectual curiosity, a lot of openness, and there is no showmanship. Nobody has to one up the other because, we're all starting from the same point.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that's interesting. And I'm thinking back to your role, Paul. You're now managing director in Huron, right? And that means that there's a lot of pressure, right? Innumerable number of priorities, and everybody wants some piece of you. And there's so much going on. What are your daily rituals, Paul, that helps you to cope and thrive under pressure?
Yeah. So the beauty of, being a people leader and, leading multiple departments is that, it comes with the revelation that, you don't have to do everything yourself, right? That's the perk, right? But it also is, important to bring people together, right? Because, there is multiple departments. Some of them are not interdependent. In the link, in the chain link, there are some departments that forward and backward integrated. There are some at the very beginning, at the end, they never meet, right? So how do you, bring these chain, the link together? How do you work with them? So my ritual is usually, pick up the, pick up the list of things that we have wanted to do, achieve in the week or in the month, and see, see who all are involved in that, and make a list of people I want to connect with, and have a conversation without having presentation or without having an agenda. But the underlying message is always, or the underlying intent or focus is always around what we want to collectively achieve. So call it a cheat sheet without being named as a cheat sheet or the list of things I want to do.
Very good. Very good. In fact, what I'm also curious about, Paul, is the body, heart, mind, and soul, right? All of those needs to be balanced in a leader. What do you do to bring about this balance in yourself, Paul?
So, someone actually, a professor and a coach, bless his heart, is no longer here, rest, his soul rest in peace. But he used to say that, the best thoughts and, the best way to connect, the yourself with mindfulness, with the nature and with the family and with the work,
Hmm.
to take some time off, right? For personal time off. He never, for some it's meditation, for some it's going to a place of worship.
True.
For me it's my morning walk, so I leave my phone behind. I don't listen to music or plug into anything. I just walk for an hour, and I think about a bunch of things. So it could be anything from my child's college, which is 15 years away, or about an upcoming event or hosting a customer. So it could be anything, but I just walk and observe, and that's my ritual. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's good to hear. That's your me time to understand and then plan better for the journey ahead.
yeah, the
Yes.
fun part is in the process you burn a few calories. So why not? Right?
Yeah, how many calories is subject to dispute, but definitely you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's less than what is being consumed.
Wonderful. You mentioned about teams, Paul. And in fact, I mean, what we discover is the fact as leaders, we need to get the best out of our teams.
Right, right.
Now, you must have managed multiple teams with your experience, Paul. What are the weakest links that you have observed in teams that brings productivity down?
So, a quote that I read a long time ago,
Mhm.
right? Uh, the world would be a better place, or the whatever we are attempting to do would be much better
Mhm.
if we all do not worry about who gets the credit for it,
Beautiful.
right? So, I think one of those things that we're all worried about, including me, and I'm sure at there are many accomplished leaders who've said this too, is that hey, we- at the end of the day, who gets the credit for it, right? So that kind of thing, it sets back people. That as soon as you're thinking about credit, automatically there is a bit of territory that is established. There is that there's this topic of I don't want to release my team member. I don't want to work on this. What is in it for me? All of that comes into play.
Correct.
So I've been, I've done that. I'm party to it. And now that I am managing a team, I look at myself, who used to do that 15, 20 years ago as a manager who's just been promoted,
Mm.
and tell myself that if I had not done that, I could have fast tracked my career much faster than I have now. So that's one of those areas that I think is a
Beautiful.
major cause for conflict, concerns, all the delays and
Beautiful. In fact, from whatever we have discussed so far, Paul, I'm gaining the fact that collective leadership is what you possibly respect more than just individual leadership. It's great that you're an individual leader, but what matters is what we collectively achieve.
without a doubt, right? Because this is not a one team sport. It's a league,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
In a league, every team has to be really good, and it has to work. It has to compete with a certain level of respect for each other and with certain rules and boundary. And at the end of the day, it's all about sportsmanship and winning, right? If you win at all cost,
Correct.
and some of the greatest teams, we used to love West Indies for that reason, right? They win, they celebrate. They lose, they still celebrate, right?
Correct. 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 For them, it's just
It's the spirit of the game.
enjoying the
Yeah,
journey, the experience, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Now that reminds me, I mean, Paul, I know you that you're personally very passionate about growing your team, about helping them achieve what we call as a multiplier mindset for them to achieve far more right? Rather than the incremental mindset. Now, I'm sure you tell some stories within the organization to inspire people, Paul. Tell us one such story. Let other leaders in the world get inspired as well.
See, storytelling, is the best way to actually communicate a message without making it complicated. I like to share personal experiences, and very recently I was in a session where somebody asked, "What's your leadership? What inspires? What is your inspiration to your leadership?"
Hmm.
I say that it's a random act of kindness that I've experienced my whole life, right?
Hmm.
So in my there are many stories, and there was this one that I shared recently with my team.
Hmm.
Uh, Considering yesterday was the day where you remember your mentors. My first day at work, I was just out of college. I'd still not graduated, right? And Meaning in the sense I'd given my exams, but I also got this job with a condition that if I graduate, I get to keep the job.
Correct.
My parents, as Venkat, you are from Chennai, so parents are very conservative. If you give more money, the kid's going to drink and smoke, so they give the exact same amount of, that is required.
Correct.
They had given me a certain, like 20, 30 rupees, which, back in the days was still a decent amount of money, but
Subsistence allowance, they call it.
that's exactly what it is, right? So I go there and I meet this, gentleman, Davis Isaac, who I consider, my mentor and, a good friend.
Hmm.
So I meet him. He sits next to me. We attend this training. Since he's a bit more senior, he's had been getting some salary for a while.
Hmm.
So suddenly when it's lunchtime and I'm saying that I'm going to this place, and he says, never met him before. 10 years my 10, 15 years my senior, but still in his early 30s.
Hmm.
He says, Let me take you someplace," and we go have lunch, and he wouldn't let me pay for an entire week. He says, you earn your first salary and then you buy me lunch, right?
Hmm.
So it was not necessary at all, but that shaped my, the way I lead, I manage a team forever, right? It does not necessarily have to be judgmental. It does not necessarily always have to be performance. Take care of someone who's struggling, right? Or who's not even asking help. I was not asking help, but I could have used help, and clearly I have, right? I did need some help. So
Correct.
there are many such stories like this, and I share those daily experience, which is very personal to me, which shaped my career. I nothing wrong in telling a Zen story or a story from an epic or
Correct.
from a book like what Yuval Harari has written. But I always share my personal stories. So this is one of those.
Beautiful. Beautiful. No wonder they say go givers get more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now, in your experience, Paul, you would have come across many managers, many leaders, many mentors as well. Tell us about a couple of nuggets of the best advice you have received, Paul.
That's it's a very interesting question, and the biggest advice that I've received, and not just from one mentor, and many mentors. One is it's about integrity, right?
Mm, mm,
You, it's okay if you don't get anything right at the beginning, as long as you're doing it correctly, right?
beautiful.
Versus do it wrong, but you're getting right.
Mm,
Uh, the first mistake can be fixed, because once you gain integrity you can get things right, but if you don't integrate that get into integrity, you'll never be able to fix your life. So that's one.
very good.
um, and the second is is an advice that my mom, who I consider my biggest mentor and my coach, she's no longer no longer here, but the one thing that she says, not in as many words, but she showed it to me in her life. And some of my coaches, my professors have also said this: is that in a relationship, you give more than what you take, right? It does not necessarily have to be, father, parent, children, husband, wife, customer, business, in any relationship. You don't, you, even if you meet someone for the first time, you give more than what you take.
Correct. Beautiful.
So, so those were the two things. And incidentally, these are two things that's very important to me. When I made the decision for my daughter's school here in Bangalore, we
Mm.
had three schools, but the school that we chose to send her, we sent her because that in their value system, integrity was number one. The other two schools did not have it. So,
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. So in a sense, what you received is what you practice.
absolutely,
Yeah. Very
absolutely,
nice. Now, one of the beauties of leadership, Paul, is the ability to work across multiple cultures.
right.
In fact, leaders are going global as we speak,
I agree.
right? What is it about cross-cultural diversity and integration have you learned that is serving you well, Paul, when you work across multiple cultures?
So, while the answer is, respect the culture, understand that, that every culture is evolved and it has its own, systems and beliefs and, processes and faith and nuances and things like that.
Mm.
Uh, I think, fundamentally, as a human being, we all, the basic expectation that we have from each other is to respect each other, right? Is that's the you don't, if you respect the individual, you accept the individual for who they are and leave the biases out, then rest of it becomes immaterial. By design, you're going to, treat them fairly and equally. And this also comes from my belief system that, give more than you can take, right? And you'd be surprised. You might think that you are giving more. The moment you give more, you're only giving, you're getting it back in multifolds, right? And I'm a beneficiary of that. I strongly believe that, be it knowledge or be it, sharing a connection,
Correct.
just be respectful, just be, approach the individual with the mindset and the thought process that, they have a reason for what they are doing, right?
Very nice.
So
Very nice. I mean, celebrate the humanity within each one of us, respect the
exactly,
other person. And then
exactly,
you're saying, give it, right? Give them
exactly,
more value, and then
right.
it will come back at some point in time. Only thing there is no timeline to it.
Absolutely. And, thankfully, I work for an organization which is very, the value system is respect
Correct.
and trust and, having fun together,
Very nice.
celebrating, the diversity. These are more important to the organization and the value system. I love that about the organization. So it helps me, in a way, I feel natural, a natural fit at this ecosystem because, that's what I value the most too.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, the other thing about organizations, Paul, is all about growth. Everybody wants multiplier growth, but teams sometimes want to be risk covers and they think more about incremental growth.
Right.
So how do you change their mindsets, Paul? That I'm very curious to hear that.
10 years ago, my answer, would have, was process and technology, right? You do right, set the process and keep the right technology, things will fall in place. And now that I have more gray hair and, more bald patches,
It's not showing though.
so anything can be done in Zoom. So it's more people and purpose, right? If you don't align, if you don't align the individual with the purpose, right? And if they, if they're an inventor, if they are an innovator, and if they are intellectually curious about something, and if you bring them and say that, do this, which is follow step one, two, and three, and go back, follow step one, two, and three, that individual is not going to, it's not their, their purpose is in creating something new, So I feel, I'm a strong believer of that, right? Because if I want, personally, if I want to grow professionally, personally, and financially,
Hmm.
applies for everybody, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
I can do that only by doing what I enjoy doing, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so if I get the best salary, best title, but if it's not matched with my purpose, then I'm not going to grow or enjoy, right?
True.
So uh, my mantra, or my one line answer to that is match people and purpose, and then rest of it will fall in place.
Very good. Would that be your hiring mantra as well, Paul, which is to when you hire leaders?
Yes, because absolutely. When we hire, so here's the thing, right? There are two things. Role, if you get the right role,
Hmm.
right salary will follow, right?
Correct. Correct.
Or you pick the highest salary, the role will match the salary, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
What what is not discussed is,
Hmm.
and what is not captured in a JD or in the in the title or the salary is
Hmm.
what is that, how can I keep you in the organization for 20 years, 25 years, right? Or how can I keep you engaged for the 8 hours that you are at your desk, right?
Hmm.
So an engaged leader, is equal, automatically leads to a team that is very engaged, right? An inspired team. And when you have a team that is inspired, then, the results are also going to be inspiring, right? So I think in that journey, the most important thing is to first of all find out what the purpose of the individual, what do they want to do,
True.
as a team, what do we want to do, and ask, hey, are you aligned, right?
Very nice.
Right. And if it's not, let's find something that, that'll help them, align or find what they really want to do.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm reminded of what I learned early on in my coaching journey, Paul. They say, how do you link your current performance to future potential to life purpose? Right? That vertical coherence. If it's aligned, then boom, I mean, the best work comes out.
Absolutely.
Very nice. Very nice. Now I'm curious a little bit about you personally, Paul. There's loads of change happening around you, whether it be people, process, technology, ecosystems, platforms, everything is changing. How does Paul stay ahead of the change?
So I'm not sure you hear this answer very regularly, but there are two, three things I'm very passionate about. Is one, surrounding, somehow get into the company of really intellectual people, right? So, all my team, every single leader that I work with in the organization are really, really smart people, right? So
Beautiful.
they are probably, um, probably some of the best you'd find in the industry in those areas. So
Beautiful.
I chat with them, I connect with them regularly. So sometimes I connect with no agenda. It's just it starts with, hey, Rafael Nadal, went dropped out of Wimbledon, and
Mm,
we discussed a wide variety of topic, right?
mm,
Yeah, that is one. The
mm.
second is I also, uh, my both my parents were teachers and preachers. I
No wonder. Okay. So that
never,
must be part of you now.
I should have, also chosen teaching as a career, but somehow I did not do that. So, but I'm still very passionate about teaching, coaching, and mentoring. So
Hmm,
one way of, being connected uh, to that is, I coach, coach and mentor startups.
beautiful.
So, and particularly startups that have interest, not just ROI, but also positively a positive change to the ecosystem and to the community they serve, right? So there are a few really sharp kids, that I connect with and I speak with them.
Hmm.
And the third also is, I set aside some fund for every in the end of every decade. I go for a refresh. So uh, I, I I go to campuses. So this recently completed a course in 2010. I completed a course. So it's not, when I say campus, it's not online or anything. I go for a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, attend class and come back. So that has helped me. It's not by design. I,
Hmm.
I started off and I continued that, and then I realized that I'm learning more from being back in campus, because in 10 years, in a decade, everything that is taught to you a decade ago has changed. Uh,
Correct.
but B school professors are teaching entirely different case studies, different concepts. Uh,
Correct.
you know, the last decade they were talking about innovation. That was this time they're talking about authenticity.
Hmm.
Being a true, finding your true north.
True.
That also helps.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, there is something that we call the soul of leadership, Paul, which is all about the authentic self. What advice would you provide to leaders for them to discover their authentic selves, Paul?
Uh, so my answer is, stay true to yourself, right? Because here's the thing: we as leaders, we're constantly trying to self-critique ourselves and try to make too many changes, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I'm not saying don't change, but at the same time, not saying that sculpt yourself every morning.
Hmm.
So the other piece is also that, we are surrounded by, so someone, I have a little over 20 years of experience. All the leaders that I work, years of experience,
Hmm.
they also have gone through the same journey that, I have gone through, right?
Correct. Correct.
So trying to be what you're not is something that they'll see through immediately, right?
Beautiful.
And we all do that. We all, in our family, in the circles that we work with, when we see someone who know that deep down they're a very different person, but when they put up a different act, it's easily identifiable. So the only way to stay, find your fi- find what you want to do early in your career and
True.
stay the course is to be true to yourself, and continue to realign without you know without making without changing your core, your values and your belief system. So that would probably be my uh, guiding uh, guiding principle for
Wonderful.
my journey to being an authentic leader.
Very good. Now, this is an opportunity where leaders from across the globe would actually go ahead and learn from your experience, Paul. What one or two elements of advice would you provide leaders, Paul, for them to be
Right.
greater leaders?
My Listen to your team, right?
Mm.
So the the answer is always within the team, right?
Mhm.
We go, we spend top dollars to attend conferences, top dollars to engage with consultants and ask, hey, I don't understand what my customer wants. The answer is actually with the team.
Mm.
So sometimes we are more open to external voices than internal voices. Uh,
Mm.
so my answer is, I think, I also constantly reiterate it to myself, and I've been constantly reminded to
Mm.
that, the team does not necessarily mean the core group that you work with.
Mm.
If you have, there are people who are, who want to meet with you with great ideas, but we don't usually make the time for that. And
Mm.
that I think is the biggest way to address that problem, because the answer always lies within.
True. Beautiful. Beautiful. Allow me to say thank you, Paul. It's been wonderful getting your insights, getting your perspectives. I'm fairly confident that when people go ahead and listen to you, it will open up certain possibilities for them as well. allow me to say thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Paul.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
Definitely.
Looking forward to speaking with you.